question, Jennifer?
Just a quick question. What possessed you to write your book that's coming out in July? Why share that kind of story, and what possessed you to finally share all that?
That's an awesome question. You know, somebody asked me that the other day. It's like, after all these years, why now? And first of all, I want you guys to know that there's stories, baseball stories in the book, but it's not a baseball book. So there were a lot of things that led up to that book, and just so you guys understand, the book is I'm going to talk about growing up in Yankee Stadium and what it meant, and I'm going to get to your question, and then I talk about the tragedy and the anger and the sadness first, the anger and the guilt of losing my little brother to leukemia when I was 15, he was 11. I gave him a bone marrow transplant that put him into a coma, and I felt like I was the killer. And it was like that, by the way, from that moment through the 93 World Series, it was after the World Series that winter that I finally went and got some help. And all of those emotional breakdowns was that anger that lived inside me. There was an animal that was on the inside of me. So, and I didn't care where we were, by the way, or the circumstances or the consequences. Like, if me and you got into a conversation, I didn't like where it was going. We ended up fighting. I didn't care. You know, it didn't matter. I didn't. You know. So there was this animal that lived in me, and then. So I talk about that. And by the way, I don't know. Some of you probably remember that myself and Dave Stewart were caught up in a police brutality case. Nobody's ever heard the story, and I tell the story, and in the book, and it's important because, you know, we were gagged. We were never allowed to say one word. And when the case was over, we never said a word about the case. We never laid blame on anyone, but, you know, we got the shit beat out of us in Tampa by 26 police officers. When I say we got the shit beat out of us, it was like they pummeled us. And I tell the story in the book. And because, you know, any one of you, just like me, you can get caught up in a police brutality case at any moment if you're not 100% aware of the circumstances and the places you're at. And let me tell you, and the second you think you can is the day it happens to you. And that was me. I was like, you know, I mean, to this day, I got respect, by the way, for every first responder, because that's a tough, man. That job is so difficult and so tough, especially in the United States right now, where we've had a lot of issues, man. And I would just tell you that. And I didn't write the story for attention or anything else. I don't even give any power to why it happened. There's no blame in it, but it happened. It was a part of my life. And I didn't want to write the story, in fairness, but the publisher was like, if you're going to do a book and you're going to teach people and you're going to help people, you can't leave any story out that somebody can say, why didn't you talk about that? So, look, I wrote it. I wrote about, you know, living out the childhood dream, the tens of millions of dollars that I made as a baseball player, the money that I made after baseball, which was mirrored my baseball career, right up to 2009, the economic collapse where we were not shielded and had to start over. And I would tell you, having big money is cool, but having it and losing it is worse than never having it in the first place. You know, and I would just tell you that my partner, my wife, my soulmate, my best friend, helped me get through one of the most difficult economic times in my life. And I had the pressure on me because I'm the man of the family, man. And I was like, so I tell the story about that whole fall in the book. So there's a lot of things in there that led to really a system that I believe that if you apply the system, you can win anything. And I've been able to use the exact same system in 4 different industries and make it to the top of the mountain in all of those industries and be able to do that. So I'm grateful and thankful. But that book really started 3 years ago now, which was 2 years ago before I wrote it. And I was with my father. My mother had called frantically. He's been battling cancer, multiple myeloma, for 16 years now. And he'd been 911 to a hospital in 4 years over 40 times. 911 over 40 times. And where every time they 911, we didn't know if we'd get him back out of the hospital. I mean, it was that bad. And she called, and she said, you got to get to Seattle now. And I called Erica. Erica called the airlines. I'll hold ass to the airport. When I landed in Seattle, I didn't know if my dad would be living. And when I got to the hospital, he was running a fever of over 105. He didn't know what decade it was. Forget the day. He didn't know what decade. He was so, like, when you run fevers that high, you start losing it. And 3 days later, from that moment, he led our family out of the hospital. And we're all looking at each other like, how in the world? Like, he's leading the march of the family out of the hospital. And we got to his house, and he looked at me and he says, let's take a drive in the mountains. Cool. So I get into his truck, he gets in the passenger seat, and guides me, and we're in Sammamish up in the mountains in the northwest, and he's like, man, there's some beautiful homes up here, Todd. And I'm like, yeah. I'm just listening to my father, and it was an incredible moment. And he says, Todd, he says, one day, or he said, someday, I might buy a home in these mountains. And I'm driving, and I'm like, my thought was, I just want to get you through today. See, but what I realized was he wasn't given any power to his current circumstances. He wasn't given power to his illness, to the cancer, he still had all of his power, everything was on his vision